In the beginning, Hashem's light was the only thing that filled creation. His first desire was to make place for creation, so he limited his light. This limitation of the light, so he pulled the light from the center to the sides, is called the tzimtzum. Afterwards, he brought a line of his infinite light into the tzimtzum. In doing so, he circled around the tzimtzum with this light. The line that comes into the tzimtzum is called the kav, and the line that circles around the tzimtzum is called igulim. Inside, he also created another type of light, which is called yosher, which is a different form of light. The igulim is equal on all sides, whereas yosher has three different columns, right, left, and center, which represent chesed, din, and rachmim. This light also comes from the kav. There are many different types of igulim and yosher that we're going to see later, but these two, the first two that were created, were the igulim and yosher of what is called Adam Kadmon, or Ak. The kav is inside Adam Kadmon and is his soul and life force. The 10 spheres of Yosher of Ak is made up of internal and external lights. The internal lights are called pnimius, and the external called chitzonius. The internal lights are made up of 4 major lights. Ors of Av, which we put as green, Sag, we did orange, Ma is blue, and Ben is red. Obviously these colors have no bearing on actually what's in Shemayim, because there are no colors in Shemayim. Some of these Ors Pnimim of Av, Sag, Ma, Ben break through the external part, the chitzonius of Adam Kadmon, and go through his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, and also hair. As we will see, as a general rule, every place where there's an orifice in the person's body, there is also parallel light that comes out from the upper worlds. We're just going to look at the internal lights and the face. So the Av comes out of the hair. Sag is broken down into another 4 types of light. Sag can be broken down also into Av, Sag, Ma, Ben. And from the Av of Sag is broken down into, the Av of Sag is broken down into 4 types, 3 types, Tamim Elyonim, Emtzayim, and Tachtonim. The Tamim Elyonim are going to come out of the ears, those 9. Tamim Emtzayim out of the Chotam, and Tamim Tachtonim will come out of the Peh. The rest of the Ors of Sag and the other 2 general Ors of Ma and Ben we will speak about later, how they come out of Adam Kadmon. From those 9 came 10 Ors Maknifim and 10 Ors Pnimim. The Makif came out of the right ear and the Pnimi came out of the left. These Ors came out in a form of a hay that was made up of a Daled and a Vav. The Vav was the small foot inside. These Ors came down to the Shibboleth Zaken and didn't unite there at the Shibboleth Zaken. They stayed separate at the Shibboleth Zaken. From the Chotem also came 10 spheres, or Makif from the right Chotem and or Pnimi from the left. These 10 spheres that came out of the Chotem were in a Bechina of 6 Alfin, which is a breakdown of the Vav, whose Gematria is 6, that we had inside the Ozen. The Ozen we said was made up of a Daled and a Vav. Now this Vav is broken down to 6 Alfin, which come out of the Chotem, all the way down to the Chazeh. From the Peh came 10 Ors Makifim and Pnimim. These Ors were a breakdown of what we saw in the Oznaim. We saw a hay, which was made up of Daled and Vav, and the Ors Peh are now a breakdown of the Daled from those 9. Now the Daled breaks down into 4 Alfin, 4 Alephs. 2 of them made up with the letters Yud Vav Daled, which combine like this, and two of them which made up the letters Yud Vav Yud, which combine like this. These four alfim have a source in the oznaim and in the chotem. The two upper alfim from the peh have a source in oznaim, and the two lower alfim are sourced in the chotem. The or of the peh came out from the peh down to the tibur, and then afterwards went back up into the peh, and left behind a lower, weaker type of light. As the or came out of the peh for the first time, not all of the oros had the strength afterwards to go back into the peh. These oros that were left behind were the weaker part of the oros, and they became the kelim, the vessels that we'll learn about in more detail later. Then, 9 out of the 10 oros went back into the kelim, as we will explain in more detail. All of this, if we looked at it all together, with regards to the tzimtzum and the Or Ein Sof, would look something like this. Now we're going to explain in more detail how the oros came out of the peh. Now the first or that came out of the peh was the or of Malchus. When it came out of the peh, it came out with only a bechina of nefesh. Next came the Vav Ktsavos, the 6 lower spheres before Malchus, from Chesed to Yesod. When they came, Malchus achieved another level, Ruach. Next came the or of Bina out of the peh, also with a bechina of nefesh only, and when that happened, when Bina came out, then the Vav Ktsavos, the 6 spheres from Chesed to Yesod, received Ruach, and Malchus received Neshama. Then came out the or of Chochmah with Nefesh, and Bina received Ruach, and the Vav Ktsavos received Neshama, and Malchus received Chaya. Then Keser came out with Nefesh, and Chochmah received Ruach, and Bina received Neshama, and the Vav Ktsavos received Chaya, and Malchus received Yechida. And now the oros turn around to go back into the peh. First, Keser goes into the peh, and Chochmah now receives another madriga, receives a level of Neshama. Bina receives Chaya. The Vav Ktsavos Zerampin receives Yechida, and Malchus gets its first Makif. Now, if we look right underneath Malchus, Malchus left behind the Kli of Malchus. So part of the light that wasn't able to go up with Malchus, the lower type of light, was left behind, and that turned into the Kelim, the vessels. Now, Chochmah also goes back into the peh and leaves behind Bina, which receives another level, receives Yechida. Then Vak gets the first Makif, and Malchus gets its second Makif. Now we're going to see that there is no higher Makif in this Or, in this Olam, higher than the second Makif. And also we see now that Yesod, the Kli of Yesod, was revealed. Now Bina goes back into the peh, and the Vak gets a second Makif, and Malchus doesn't get any extra Ors. And the Vav Ktsavos go back into the peh, and Malchus again does not receive anything more. Malchus goes back into the peh. Next, all of the Ors come back into their Kelim, but they don't come back into their exact Keli, they come back into the Kli one above it. Malchus will take the place in Yesod, and Yesod's Or will take the place in Hod, and the Or of Netzach will take the place in the Kli the Or of Netzach will take its place in the Kli of Tiferes, and so on and so forth. Now we're going to explain how exactly the Keli was finalized. the two parts of the Kli. There's the goof of the Kli, which we showed before in brown, and we're going to show now how the neshama of the Kli was created. As the or, the main or, left and went up, it left behind it, inside the or, the lower type of or, it left inside it a reshima. This reshima was an imprint of the original or. As the original or went up, it wanted to still give to its reshima, to what it left behind, or to the general ors that were left behind, and it gave back or to the reshima, and now the reshima is a type of or which is called or yasher, and the light that is leaving the reshima is now called or choser. These two lights, since they're a different nature, one is or yasher and one is or choser, they have a very strong reaction when the or yasher is receiving from the or choser, and it creates sparks. These sparks go into the Kli, the original Kli, the brown one, and obviously there's no colors here, but the one that we're drawing is brown, and gives it like a spark of life. This is the life force, the life spark of the Kli. Afterwards, the ors go back into their kelim, and as we said, each or goes back into one Kli above its natural place, so the or of Malchus is going to take the place in the Kli of Yesod. And if we point out, we could see, if we look closely, you could see that the or of Malchus went into Yesod, and therefore it left Malchus, the Kli of Malchus, empty, without any or. As we mentioned earlier, the ors of Av come out and are revealed through the hairs, and the ors of Sag was broken down into 4 ors, Av, Sag, Mao, Ben, and the ors of Av was broken down to 3. They came out of those Naim, Chotem, and Peh. Now we'll speak about how the ors of Sag will come out. Now not all of Sag comes out, just the or of Ben of Sag. And with it will also come out the chitzonius of the Ben, the general Ben, which is underneath the tabo. These ors come out of the Anaim. This process we're about to describe. Now we're going to explain how the ors came out of the Anaim. Now, the ors of Mao Ben of Sag are mislabish inside the ors of Mao Ben, just like Abba and Ima are mislabish inside of Zeram Pin and Nukva. And so too the ors of Ma'u Ben of Sag are mislabish inside Mao Ben of Sag. Now, Mao Ben of Sag lifted its ors up to above the Tibur and lifted with it all of the ors that were mislabish, it was mislabish inside of. And there at the Tibur created a parsa, a separation. This separation was really between the Chaza, from the Chaza to the Tibur. If we look at it at Adam Kadmon in 3 dimensions, his Chaza would be in the front, and the parsa would go on an angle all the way back to the Tibur in the back. Now, this or came out from a connection, a yichud, a unification of Av and Av of Sag. With this unification, the ors of Ben came out of the Anaim. These ors are again the ors of Ben of Sag, and the ors, the chitzonius of Ben Akloli, the general Ben. Came out of the Anaim and went down to close to Akudim. And from there went down to underneath the Tabo. Afterwards, the Ben Akloli broke through the parsa and went back underneath the parsa. And from there, it was Meir, shined to the Tibur of Adam Kadmon, through the Tibur of Adam Kadmon, meaning through the outside, and also through the Yesod, and through the 10 fingernails of Adam Kadmon. Now the ors of the Einaim, which are called the Nekudim, come down to Shibos HaZaken. Keser, Chochma, and Bina receive from the Ozen and from the Chotem, and also from the Peh, but the 7 lower spheres only receive from the Peh. Now the upper spheres, Keser, Chochma, and Bina, also receive when it goes underneath the Tibur. As we'll see, it will receive from the Tibur and also from the Yesod, whereas the 7 lower spheres will only receive from the Peh and not from the Ozen and Chotem, and also they only receive from the Tziponaim and not from the Tibur and from the Yesod. These are major differences between the Keser, Chochma, and Bina and the 7 lower spheres. And we're going to see later what this creates, how the 7 lower spheres are in a much more imperfected state than the 3 upper spheres. Next, the Urs come down. First, before the Urs come down, the Kelim take their place. And as we can see very clearly that the Kelim of Keser, Chochma, and Bina are very different than the lower Kelim. Keser and Chochma and Bina are in a position which is more perfected, a position of right, left, and center. And the lower spheres are one on top of the next, which is a much less perfected state, as we will see in the next chapter.